Let me get to these receivers real quick before we get out of here. And you guys, let me know what receivers you think that I mentioned here are pie in the sky. What do you think are realistic? And name any guys that I miss on this list. I think I got like 10 names. I just, when I was watching the Bears-Texans game yesterday, I just wrote down a bunch of guys that I think the Steelers should be looking at and what could be realistic. One or two that may be a little bit more out there, but there's a case for each one of these names. So DeAndre Hopkins is the first one. Dude, he's got a cheap contract. There's only 1 year left on this deal, so he's going to be a free agent after this season. And the Titans are terrible. Levis is not good. Hopkins' stat line this year is not a Hopkins stat line. It's not good. These first two games have not been good for him. So I could see him being frustrated. I don't know if he's going to force his hand. I don't know if he's going to make things awkward for the Titans, but I think even the Titans could see how trading DeAndre Hopkins at some point here would benefit them in their future and trying to stack up some picks because the Titans aren't going anywhere. Not going anywhere. You're going to lose Hopkins no matter what this offseason. Levis ain't getting him the ball anyway. Make a trade. Get a pick. Get a fourth-round pick or something like that. And could you imagine Hopkins being opposite of George Pickens? Now, Hopkins ain't what he was in his prime, but he still had a 1,000-yard year last year with the Titans. With Will Levis, with their whole disaster of an offense and quarterback situation. Still had 1,000 yards. I'm looking at our offense from yesterday and just envisioning us putting DeAndre Hopkins on the outside and thinking to myself, yeah, that just gives Fields another weapon, another guy that he could throw the ball deep to, another guy that he could just throw it to, and it's, a little contested, and DeAndre Hopkins, more often than not, is going to come down with the ball. And outside of Pickens, I just don't feel like we got another guy like that. Van Jefferson, no. Calvin Austin, no. He's too small. Pat Freiermuth, I like how we've been getting him involved these first 2 weeks, but we can still use another guy. Like that's only one guy right there in Pat Freiermuth outside of Pickens that I feel like we can rely on. Roman Wilson, we still got to wait and see. I think he's going to be good, but you can have an offense where it's Pickens, Roman Wilson, DeAndre Hopkins, Pat Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington out there if you want to do the two tight end sets. So I think the DeAndre Hopkins one, that might be in my opinion, maybe the most realistic out of these names. Just because of the contract, he's done with the Titans. He's on a dismal team, dismal offense. I think he can still play, but he's not prime DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like his stock's down a little bit. But if you get him into a good situation, like what he could be here in Pittsburgh, he could turn back the clock. John Metchie is another one. Got to see the Texans play last night. He wasn't even dressed. He's inactive. He is buried on that Texans depth chart. And there was a tweet sent out by Jordan Schultz a few weeks ago before the regular season even started and he said multiple teams have reached out to the Texans to see if John Metchie III would be available in trade due to the plethora of receivers on their roster. It's unclear if Houston will move him, but several teams are keeping a close eye. Former second-round pick out of Alabama had 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown in the preseason. So he had a good preseason. He obviously displayed that he can play. And if you look back at Alabama, former 1,000-yard receiver at Alabama, was a second-round pick. Obviously sat out his first year because he was dealing with cancer, but beat it. And then whenever he came back, was just buried on their depth chart. Has never really been able to find out his niche or his role in Houston. And they got a solid 4 or 5 guys ahead of him. So I think if you're the Steelers, calling about Metchie ain't a bad call at all. Give up a late-round pick, bring him in here. And I think he has, because you could argue if we bring in Metchie, we're just dealing with another unknown commodity. Just throw him in the mix with Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin as unproven guys. I don't know. If you watch Metchie play, I think he has more upside, more talent to him than anyone else on this receiving core with the Steelers outside of George Pickens. Diontae Johnson, that's a name that has been brought up. Do we do the reunion? Because I think he's going to be in a similar scenario with DeAndre Hopkins, just a dismal offense.
where he's not going to be putting up stats. You see that through these first 2 games. Bryce Young is not looking good. Not looking good at all. And Diontae, he only has 1 year left on his contract. That's one of the reasons why we traded him to the Panthers. 1 year left on his contract, and it's almost literally exactly like the DeAndre Hopkins scenario. If the Panthers keep losing, Deontay's doing nothing, Panthers got to look at themselves and say, we need to start getting some future assets here. Deontay's obviously not going to want to come back. We're going to lose him anyway. Let's get a draft pick, send him to a team that could use him. And the Steelers, we know what a Diontae Johnson, George Pickens 1-2 combo looks like. I wouldn't be opposed to that if we could get him back for a 7th-round pick or, a future 6th-round pick. Who knows? Whatever it would be. But I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. That'd be incredible, though, for the con artist to pull that off. We trade Diontae for Diontae Jackson. Diontae Jackson's balling out with us. And then Deontay's doing nothing with the Panthers, but we're able to get Diontae back for a 7th-round pick. The con artist just doing con artist things. That would be a masterpiece right there. We call the con artist because of he's putting together these incredible trades and he's working masterpieces. I mean, this might be his greatest work yet if he could pull that one off. Watch out for the Dolphins receivers in Tua, because Tua obviously suffered a concussion. He's going to be out for a little bit. He may even retire. Dolphins receivers and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they got some massive contracts. I know the Dolphins just picked up Tyler Huntley, but they got Skylar Thompson. If things are looking good for the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, I could see him getting a little noisy about wanting out. And even if he doesn't get noisy, the Dolphins may look at themselves and say, man, this is where we're at right now. Team's not looking good. There's not much promise for the immediate future. We can't be affording to pay these receivers this type of money if we're going to start another rebuild process. So they may ship off either a Tyreek Hill with his contract being $30+ million or a Jalen Waddle $27 million. Just watch out. That one's not anything immediate, but if the Dolphins, if the bottom falls out with them and they're sitting at 2-5 or 1-6 before the trade deadline, who knows? Who knows? Courtland Sutton, that's a name we've been talking about. I liked what I saw from him yesterday, particularly in the second half. He showed that he could still do it. He could be a quality receiver out there. And for a team like us, he would be our number 2 across from Pickens. Big body guy, 6'4", but got some shimmy to him, got some agility, got some shake. Because we saw with Porter a couple times where he had to hold on Sutton to stop him from getting open. Yeah, so I wouldn't be opposed to that. It's kind of the same thing we're talking about with some of these other teams here and their receivers. If Broncos keep losing, they may say to themselves, we got a lot of dead cap that we're eating with this Russell Wilson contract, and we're still going to have to eat that dead cap for next year. Best way to start building this team up is to get some future draft picks. I got 4 more names here. I'm starting to run out of time, so let me just list these guys off real quick. Treylon Burks, Alec Pierce, DJ Moore. You saw he was getting a little upset with Caleb Williams and the Bears offense yesterday. Could he get a little pissed off at some point? 3-4 weeks down the road, if he ain't getting his targets, Bears offense continues to look bad. Could he get a little you know what? Get me back to my old quarterback, Justin Fields, where I was getting 1,300 yards with him last year. Give me back with Justin Fields. Give me back to my quarterback that knows how to get me the ball. Something to look out for. That one's almost like the Dolphins receivers. Nothing immediate there, but they got 2 other guys. They got a Keenan Allen. They got a Rome Odunze. They could afford to give up one of those receivers. And then last guy, Devontae Adams. Raiders actually feel like they got some momentum. They got something good going with Antonio Pierce. So I don't think they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. I think they're going to be perfectly hovering around 500 for most of the season, and they're not going to be, in the basement at all. I think Gardner Minshew actually has a weird good connection with Davante Adams. That's the one we have been talking about. That's the one probably we would like the most out of all these names, but that might be the most unrealistic. Hopkins, I'm liking. I think he's a big name, but he's realistic. Going back to Treylon Burks, though, I wouldn't be that happy about that one. I feel like that would be the least proven guy here, the biggest unknown. I prefer John Metchie over Burks. I think both of them are unknown, but Metchie would fit this offense better than Burks and Burks' playing style. Burks is more of like a Deebo Samuel. We need an outside guy. We need a guy that can get open, get some separation, be a QB-friendly target for Fields down the grass. I think Metchie can do that better than Burks. Alec Pierce, though, the weirdest thing about the Colts situation right now is that Alec Pierce is their best receiver, but they've drafted all these dudes in the last couple seasons to replace him. They got a plethora of talented dudes. Michael Pittman they paid, so I don't think they're getting rid of him at all. They drafted Josh Downs last year, and Josh Downs had a pretty good year, had like 700 yards. He's been hurt to start the season. And then they just picked up A.D. Mitchell from Texas in the second round of the 2024 draft. But Alec Pierce, for the first 2 weeks, he's Anthony Richardson's favorite target. So I just feel like one of those guys have the capability of getting moved. And Colts starting off 0-2 as well. And Alec Pierce, with his like contract situation, at some point they're going to have to pay him, or they're going to have to pay one of these guys, right? Big money across from Michael Pittman. So I could see him being on the block. In a way, maybe the Colts like that Pierce is playing good because he's boosting up his trade value. But I wonder if they'd be apt to move off of him versus a guy like Josh Downs. Or maybe they're just going to keep the receiver room as is. But Alec Pierce is a name that I think would be very interesting because he's a really good deep threat. He's really fast and is showing that he can play pretty good in this league. Like he already had solid seasons to begin with, but like not to the degree, not the pace that he's on even this year. Like this might be a breakout year for him. I just don't know if the Colts will be willing to move off him, but they just got so much guys in that receiver. It's going to get busy. So when Josh Downs comes back, will he take over the number 2 spot over an Alec Pierce? And then Alec Pierce becomes more expendable? I don't know. Or does Alec Pierce just remain the guy because he has chemistry with Anthony Richardson up to this point? But let me read off a few more comments before I get out of here. What do you guys think of those receiver trade targets? Dre Jones 121 is calling Courtland Sutton at the trade deadline. He thinks that's going to happen. I think we need to get this trade done before the trade deadline. After seeing yesterday, I don't want to continue to mess with this not having a wide receiver 2 here. Dre Jones says realistic and best 3 trade options are Hopkins, Sutton, and Metchie. G-Danks84 says he likes the DeAndre Hopkins idea the best. I think that's where I'm at. Lord Dre 10 says DJ Moore would be sick. It's not immediate. It's doubtful. That's on the less realistic part of the tier here. But hey, if it's not working out with him and Caleb Williams, could he get a little loud? Could he get a little noisy? Maybe. You saw his body language yesterday. G-Danks84 says, I'd take Thielen over Diontae Johnson. Purely out of less cancer. You're talking about just the history that DJ has here with the Steelers. I feel like, though, if we bring back DJ, it's going to be a humble DJ that is not going to be causing any drama at all because he got to witness firsthand what it looks like for his career on a team outside of Pittsburgh. A team like the Panthers. So I think he would come back like very grateful just to be in a scenario where he's relevant again, where his team's relevant, and we could actually be competing for playoffs and championships and stuff like that, where there's some sort of consistency, some sort of continuity in the locker room with coaching and players, personnel, and all that stuff. Like that's what the Steelers bring to the table. That's why we are a top 5 franchise in the league, a top 5 organization. And players really like that. They like playing for Tomlin. They like the things that we got going. I guess just surrounding what takes place on the field. like the off-field stuff. Like I think we appreciate the organization, the structure, the coaching, all that. Dre Jones 121 says grass isn't always greener on the other side. For sure. I'll read Solo Jones's comment here that I'm getting out of here. He says Slayton Myers. Oh, Jacoby Myers. You want Jacoby Myers? Metchie and Sutton. Huh. Jacoby Myers. Instead of trading for Devontae Adams on the Raiders, maybe we look Jacoby Myers. That's not a bad name. That's not a bad name. He's a good player. He's a solid number 2. Slayton, I don't want. I think he's always been overrated. But all right, I'm out of here, guys. Thanks for stopping through for, I would say, Monday morning reaction to yesterday's game, or Monday morning aftermath, but it's not morning anymore. It's in the PM. It's 1:44 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right now. So thanks for stopping through for just talking Steelers ball on a Monday. We'll just call it that. Stay chilling. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll see you guys back here on Wednesday, 4 o'clock. So tune in for that. We'll probably have some things from the Tomlin press conference to react to, quarterback news, et cetera, et cetera. Peace.